I have a friend at work who is always bringing in cool things for me to try. Last week, it was Humintas al Horno, a Bolivian delicacy, which is corn cakes baked in a triangular formation in a corn husk. When I was looking up recipes, I noticed that it was spelled two different ways, either Humintas with an N or umitas without the N. But either way, it's all the same, really, really delicious. In the end, I had to hybridize a recipe out of an old Epicurious article and a couple of TikToks that I found. Let's take a look at how it's made. Now, one thing you'll notice right off the bat is that I'm starting off with American sweet corn. That's not entirely correct. You should have choclo or Bolivian corn, which is white and really big. The main flavorings in this dish are aniseed, cinnamon, salt, sugar, and this recipe calls for a tiny bit of baking powder, which turns out to be pretty controversial. As for the filling, you should try to find Bolivian cheese if you can, because it's a little salty, but mozzarella will work in a pinch. This folding technique is what got me the first time I made it. It's not as easy as it looks. Okay, so as I mentioned, I combined two different recipes with pretty good results. You start out with some fresh sweet corn, and you cut away the bottom. This is so that you can use the corn husks. I wanted to try it at least once to see if the fresh corn husk gave more flavor than the dried corn husk. Once you've made a shallow cut along the bottom, carefully peel off the layers of the husk. The bigger pieces are what you're going to use to wrap it. You want to keep the smaller leaves too, because you'll need something to tie this with. Now that I know how this turns out, a little bit of a spoiler, it's not worth it to try to do it this way. American sweet corn has a much smaller husk than Bolivian choclo, so it's a lot harder to work with. Now just a side note, if you see me using funky painted plates, those are painted by my husband. The ones with flowers or little fruits and vegetables on them, I painted those, just in case you were wondering. So you want to carefully cut the corn off of the cob and make sure you don't go too deep. You don't want to get that hard kernel part at the end. I used both dried and fresh corn husk, and for the dried, you're going to need to soak them in hot water for at least 10 minutes before using them. The next step is to pulverize the corn kernels, just about half of the batch that you cut off. You can use a food processor for this, or I used a blender with a little bit of water in the blender cup. Before I blended it, I added a touch of the anise seeds to the corn. If you can find already ground up anise seed, that's even better. I'll write out the whole recipe in the description box if you want to try to make this on your own. One of the things I really like about this recipe is how quickly it came together. It's basically a stuffed cornbread when you think about it. You don't even need a mixer or a hand mixer. You can just mash this up with a fork or a whisk. Now in my first attempt, I used whole mozzarella and I grated it right into the batter. I wasn't sure how to get an even distribution without doing it this way. I later figured out that I missed a crucial step when using these fresh corn husks. You're supposed to boil them first. That's why it was so hard for me to wrap these up. Yeah, I have no doubt that Bolivian grandmas all over the world are shaking their heads at this video. Lo siento. With this first batch, I also had trouble with the dried corn husk as well. As you can see, they're not as pliable as I'd like. I should have used boiling hot water or soaked them for a little longer. I was also folding them wrong, but more about that later. I finally enlisted my husband's help to help me tie up these weird little origami bundles. It worked in the end, but I figured out a better way to do it eventually. Still, these were kind of cute, don't you think? Okay, so the end result was kind of ugly, but really tasty. When you peel apart the corn husk, there wasn't that much difference in flavor between using the fresh or the dried, so I'm definitely not going to go the fresh route. To me, these were a little bit on the bland side and a little dry, so I knew I had to try again. My friend actually said that she liked this first batch, even though they were a little wonky looking. My words, not hers. But who knows, maybe she was just being nice. Her mom was nice enough to send me a video on how to fold them properly. So with that in mind, here's attempt number 2.
Ya es así, así, ¿no ves? Pero vos le pones ahí la masa y le doblas así la punta de la hoja y lo pones así el otro, ¿ya? Y de ahí ya lo volcas así y ya está ahí.
So basically, I was really overthinking it the first time I made these. The second time, I used the same techniques, a little more salt, a little more sugar, a little more cinnamon, and instead of grating the cheese, I put a big piece right in the middle. That's actually much more traditional. As for the folding, her mom's video did the trick. So much easier this time. In the end, I didn't need to worry about fastening it or tying it down. The weight of the batter plus gravity is what holds it all together. You just make sure you put it seam side down on the cookie sheet. As it bakes, it'll puff up a little bit in the corn husk, creating this beautiful package. While the texture isn't still quite right, I think I lean more towards this second version, with more sugar, salt, and spices. I've since learned that you can get the Bolivian corn in the freezer section. It may not be called choclo, but it'll be really big, wide corn cobs with white kernels. I'll definitely try this again using Bolivian corn. If you do make these, serve them with a little crema or butter on the side, just in case they're dry. Drop me a line in the comments and let me know what you think. Have you tried humitas before? Have you tried Bolivian food before? Is there a beautiful food that you'd like me to try? I'd love to hear from you. See you in the comments!